In this video, I'm going to be doing a drawing that's not too dissimilar to the one which I made for my most popular upload, which is how to draw like PeterDraws, which curiously I didn't tell anyone how to draw like PeterDraws, but it was based on one of his prompts. Funnily enough, I interviewed PeterDraws recently. Look at this. Just to quickly mention, you were generous enough to give me your blessing for me to make a how to draw like PeterDraws video, and it was, the most viewed video I've made, and it was really funny how I thought the prompt is great because it was based on your prompt of the post-it note on paper and using that to draw off the post-it note onto the paper. There are lots of prompts of yours that I've tried because they're always great ways of starting a drawing, which can have its own barriers. So to overcome that can be all it takes to get a drawing out of you. But I found it quite funny how when I try to draw like you, my drawings are nothing like your drawings at all. It doesn't matter how much I'm influenced by your style. And it's probably a good thing because I don't want to mimic someone's drawing. But it was funny how when I'd say how to draw like you, and immediately I say, well, this is using your technique to a level. And then beyond that, I just can't do these same shapes. It's another way why I find another way that your videos become mesmerizing is that the decisions you make to make the drawing are always going to be so much different than what I could make and what anyone else could make because it's so individual. I think that's where a lot of the inherent value comes in. So yeah, I just want to, say thank you on camera as well, because you were very kind to do that and very generous of you, just like you are with your time now. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that video did well. And I think it is an interesting concept. I think a lot of people have kind of riffed off or gotten inspired by my videos. And it's so cool to see, like some people post them there's a PeterDraws subreddit. I don't comment there very often, but so many drawings that may or may not have been inspired by me. And it's like, I feel like it's like a branching tree.
Yeah.
And there's all these drawings, and it's cool to see, like, sometimes I can pick out little influences, and I'm honored in it, but it's mostly just fascinating to see all the different styles, the little intricacies, and it's really cool.
Oh my God. Anyway, so this is not too dissimilar a style of drawing than that video. And the reason I made this is because I quite like the style of the drawing, even though it didn't have the post-it note gaps in between, which I thought was a really good element to it. And I might need to explore something similar to that again in the future. But for this video, I just wanted to create the different sort of organic shapes, things that look like internal organs or bits of organic material, all kind of mashed together with bits of stringy bits in between, and just see how far I could get. Sometimes I find that I just run out of steam on a drawing and I just have to leave it for a while. Now this drawing has taken much longer than I wanted it to, and because I've been filming it in 4K, it really slowed down the process of the editing of the video. I had to do a couple of things to make sure that I had enough space. Doesn't matter how much I backed things up, it was just stacking up and making it impossible for me to continue with anything. And I also edit podcasts as well, which are obviously quite long and have quite a lot of data in them. So that caused a few problems, but in truth, it was more, I could have finished the drawing on the camera and then just worked at uploading the videos, but it just wasn't happening because I couldn't draw it fast enough. I'm going to try and work on that this year. I don't know what's happened to me, but I just don't seem to be able to keep the momentum going when it comes to doing drawings like this. I just really struggle to continue and push through. So I found it quite a good practice to just force myself to keep creating shapes. But I must admit, I wish I would have looked back at the PeterDraws video drawing, because there were some interesting shapes in there that I didn't include in this one. And I'm going to continue to make different variations of this type of illustration because I think that I need to grow my kind of visual library on these different subjects that I'm rendering. I do still quite like the drawing though, even though it falls short in certain areas. I'm always quite critical of drawings that I'm doing and comparing them to other drawings that I think are in some way superior. Excuse the sound of the seagull if you catch that. I live by the seaside. Anyway, that's what I've been doing, and it was interesting to see how my mind worked as far as how many repeated shapes occur in this drawing as well. I always thought like, right, I'll make a different shape now, but all of the shapes that came to mind, I didn't want to make them too geometric. I wanted them to be organic looking, so they had to have kind of a blobby wobbliness to them. I was trying to think of internal organs, but my knowledge there is so minimal that they turned out looking fairly similar to all of the shapes that I'm drawing. They're just only slightly different. And then as the drawing develops, I start to increase the variation in the shape and in the texture. And it's also the case that because this drawing took quite a few weeks to, well, I think quite a few weeks. Is it 3 weeks? I think this is the third week. I'll have to check the dates. But because it's taken me some time, I've had the opportunity to look back at the PeterDraws image and not his image, my image of, his prompt. And that helped inject different ideas into this drawing. And so it was updated with slightly more variation and increased the amount of kind of materials that I started to render and create on the page. Now, I think that drawings like this have the potential to be quite nice mixed with some figurative work, because I think this is still in the realm of the abstract. I mean, if I were to describe what it is, I'm sort of saying it's like this, and it's kind of saying this, and it's organic matter, which is quite vague, as in it doesn't look, inorganic, it doesn't look, like a steel or wood, or then again, wood is organic, but it doesn't look like a man-made product. It looks like it's internal organs, but it's not internal organs. It's kind of generally in that realm. So I think that mixing this with something, say, robotic or human, something a bit more clean-edged, could probably complement each other, and that might be the next drawing that I make, and slightly less of the textured background that I start to build up. Also, there's the potential for me to do the organic matter and then some either robot or human figure in the drawing, and then for the background, instead of hatching, to have a kind of mandala sort of image in the background, which I used to do years ago and I haven't done for some time, so I wouldn't mind practicing that. Aside from that, I've been considering doing some color images, so that actually branched off into an idea for this video. And that was, when I got to a certain point in the drawing, I thought if I then stop, take a photograph of the drawing and take the photograph from my phone, put it onto the computer and into Photoshop, then I can continue with the drawing from a certain point into a digitally colored version, and then continue with the drawing on the paper into just an ink render, fairly similar to the one which I keep referencing from my How to Draw Like PeterDraws video. So that's what I decided to do. I thought if they can both branch off in separate directions, that could be quite interesting in a bit of a different way for me to explore illustration on camera. So that's what I start to do, and you'll be able to see that in the little insert box I have the drawing which is being coloured, and then to the right of that box is a box of 4 colours, and I have, I think, 3 or 4 of those as far as different colours in each layer, and that's my palette that I'm going through. And I did them in separate layers because I just wanted 4 to go through at a time, so I didn't put them all on one layer on one page, but that is an option which I could do in the future. But for this I wanted to just have 4 that I work through, and I pick each of the colours, put them onto the drawing, and then go to the next layer and pick out of those 4. And that's how I was going through the palette. And I think it really makes the drawing come to life, and it does add a lot which I don't usually do to my drawing, which is that digital render to kind of finish it. I also got the opportunity to clean up some of the hatching on certain parts of this drawing, which is something that I just have to accept when it comes to the ink on paper version, is that I'll make certain mistakes or choices which I might regret later on. So this was a good opportunity to say, well, I can tweak that slightly and then start adding the colour and just push it forward in a different direction. And I think it works quite well. So in the future, I think this might be a process that I do, but I'll make it far more abbreviated. I just wanted to show the whole start to finish process in this video so that you have a good example of how it comes about and where it changes. And I think the point where there's no background but there's enough coverage from images in the mid and foreground that I stop there to obviously take it into the digital realm. And that's where I think it may have an advantage, and I may do that in the future, is to just stop the drawing there, take it digitally, and then go back to the drawing after that's finished. Whereas in truth, what I did with this drawing is do them both simultaneously. So I do a bit of the drawing, so it's already gone past the point of its digital iteration, and then the digital work took some time to just pick through. So I just select a video on my iPad on YouTube and just have that playing to listen to whilst I colour it. And it was about between 20 and 40 minutes for each session, because I, again, didn't want to spend too much time on there. It can be just a little maddening to spend all of your time looking at a screen and just picking away at work. And I just don't have that ability to stay and stick with things as long as I used to. And I'm going to try and build that up as far as physical materials. I don't think I'm going to do much of that for the computer work. I don't mind it for editing. I can do that on editing. But as soon as you do it with other things, it starts to become destructive. And even with the physical work, I think I start to make choices that are a little bit more impatient and irrational, that I just think I just want to keep going. I just want to kind of push, and it doesn't always serve the drawing. So that's something which I need to consider. But as far as this image goes, I think it looks quite nice. I think it's, getting there, and it's both got quite an interesting kind of quality to offer for each version of this picture. And in the future, I think it's going to go slightly more experimental in ways. And as I said, I'm going to have some maybe more literal, figurative imagery in there as well. But yeah, as far as the PeterDraws influence, I had the opportunity to thank him for the popularity of that video, and also just to talk to him, which is the first time that I've spoken to him, which hasn't been messages, it's been over the camera. And it was really nice. He's such a good person to talk to, and we got along and definitely have shared interests in certain observations and inspiration in the real world, which was nice because I knew from seeing him on camera that I had those types of interests as well. So that was really fun to talk to him about. And I hope to talk to him again next year. I think he said that he'd be a guest again, but who knows, I know these people are busy because they are such good content creators, and his work is so layered that you only see the entertainment aspect, but it is several layers to making the work. I can appreciate that because I'm doing my own YouTube channel, but I'm not doing it to the level he is. So I could definitely kind of compliment him in those areas because of I know how much must go into making that. Anyway, so look forward to that, and check out the podcast, please, because it needs more views and more support, especially this season. I've been so fortunate having really big artists on there. I mean, Jared Muralt, PeterDraws, Tom Foster, Paul Heaston, John Mahoney. I've got lots of people who are coming on who I'm just so fortunate to have as guests. That's only a few of them. So please go and check it out if you can. My first season, I was really grateful to have friends and acquaintances come on the podcast and be guests for that, because that really did fuel the interview style podcast and build it in the first year. And I've had a bit of a different approach for the second season, whereas I would initially ask questions that I had written down. For this year, I thought I'm going to mainly just react to the responses of my guest, which has been a better conversation, instead of saying, right, okay, the next question is this, and it's just kind of out of the blue. Instead, it's a follow-up from what the guest has said from the first question. And the first question could be based specifically on their work, and I try to do that because instead it'll just be a random, this is what I ask everyone question, which I do still pepper in there a little bit, because I do have certain things that I like to know what everyone says, because it'll always be an individual personal answer. So anyway, that's the podcast. So check that out if you can. I hope you like this video with the image that I worked on. Like I said, I think it's got good points and bad points. But the bad points are basically that it didn't have as much variety as I had in the PeterDraws video. But the good points are that I think it's both got a physical and a digital existence, and also some of the shapes and designs I think work quite well, especially with the intersecting diagonal lines. I think are quite nice. And yeah, I just generally think it's quite nice as an image. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.